26 years have gone since an innocent boy miraculously escaped an attack by the world's most powerful dark wizard. 26 years have passed since little Harry Potter, a resident of number 4 Privet Drive, received an unexpected letter of admission to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, opening the doors to a magical world he captured within its welcoming confines. Millions of children and young people spread across the 5 continents. 26 years of spells, stories, films, and video games that have explored every part of the wizarding world, giving the pages of the novels a second life until they are imprinted on fire in the hearts of fans. If the magical universe has proven to be an irreplaceable life partner for well over a generation, a safe haven ready to lighten even the darkest moments, it has never happened to actually be able to cross the doors of the Great Hall of Hogwarts, to follow the lessons, to spend the night in the castle dormitories, in short, to caress the life beyond the ink promised by Hogwarts Legacy. Avalanche Software's title is a creature with a dual soul, changing forms. For some, it is a role-playing game like many others, set in an open world taken from a famous literary saga. For others, it represents the realization of an impossible dream that has been harbored with hope for decades. Which lens should it be viewed through? With the loving look of the first-hour enthusiast, or with the critical eye of the nitpicking father? It's time to realize your lifetime ambition. Hogwarts Legacy is without a doubt the best video game dedicated to the universe of Harry Potter ever developed, a tribute to the wizarding world stitched with great care and packed with material. But his is a road of lights and shadows, flashes and stumbles, magnificent beauty and vexing flaws. The deeper one's affection for the Harry Potter universe, the more dazzling its good aspects become, to the point that the veil that divides the experience from the actual game becomes nearly invisible. As we discuss it in detail in our Hogwarts Legacy review. The year is 1890. Albus Dumbledore is still too young to attend Hogwarts. Harry Potter's birth is 90 years in the future, and the school's headmaster is the despised Phineas Nigellus Black, ancestor of the legendary Sirius Black. The wizarding realm is in turmoil, still scarred by the riots of 1752. The Ministry of Magic expresses alarm for the Goblin uprisings, led by the revolutionary Ranrock and oddly active in the Scottish countryside. Otherwise, life in the wizarding world goes on as usual, with trains full of students moving towards the Highlands and swarms of magical families flocking to the enchanted shops of Hogsmeade. It is in this frame that the protagonist or protagonists of Hogwarts Legacy enters the picture, a blank canvas on which to draw one's alter ego using the imagination. What makes it unique? He was taken over by the magical world a few years late for some unknown reason, thus he will be allowed to the 5th year of Hogwarts on a very special basis. To fill the gaps left by his condition, he is joined by Professor Eleazar Fig, and it is during the training that the strange couple makes a startling discovery. The young wizard has a mysterious link with ancient magic, a source of power lost for centuries and once capable of erecting none other than the legendary walls of Hogwarts. An ancient force that many find appealing, particularly the aforementioned Goblin Ranrock and the dark wizard Victor Rookwood, head of the dreaded mercenaries known as Ashwinder. The voyage of the new chosen one begins here, a long training course characterized by the passage of the seasons. While the hues of fall fade with the yellowed leaves and give way to the first snows of winter, the adventure is divided in half, treating in parallel bits of normal life within the walls of Hogwarts and a secret mission that will determine the fate of the entire magical universe. It's a double life. On the one hand, you go to classes, make friends, get lost in the school's labyrinthine corridors, and bump your nose against every aspect of magical education. On the other hand, we're confronted with dangers that go far beyond the preparation of a 5th-year student. Hogwarts Legacy's narrative component does its thing without ever exaggerating. It uses this dual identity to present a light, climactic, and unpretentious drama, taking advantage of the bustling days at Hogwarts to dig into the depths of the wizarding world. Along with the grand plot of ancient magic, several minor adventures emerge that, by utilizing the supporting characters as a springboard, dive directly into the series canon, playing with previously established locations and relationships. And perhaps this is the plot's most serious flaw, not the lightness that has always characterized the magical world, but the fact that we are frequently confronted with situations already read in novels or seen on the big screen, here reenacted in an excessively similar, if not identical, manner, in a strange amalgam that is a triumph of fan service. The towers of Hogwarts Castle, the ancient school of magic, stand in the middle of the Scottish Highlands, dominating a carpet of dense forests reflected by the still waters of the lakes, squeezed by the embrace of the mountains. The sloping roofs of many small settlements radiate, among which the village of Hogsmeade shines. The valleys are crossed by express train tracks that lead to London, and after passing the final ruins on the horizon, you reach the shore, where the rock walls plunge straight into the sea. Hogwarts Legacy follows a completely open-world format, allowing you to wake up in the morning, leave the dormitory, stroll the courtyards, and walk into the village of Hogsmeade, possibly to buy a new broomstick or a couple of potions ingredients. And it is an open world that is far from empty. In fact, it is overflowing with content in several aspects. The architecture is that of a classic large region dotted with small points of interest, ranging from the Trials of Merlin environmental puzzles that expand the inventory upon completion to the camps full of dark wizards to be defeated, from the minute caves in which to recover some pieces of equipment to the numerous lairs of fantastic animals. Every 100 steps, you come across a ruin touched with ancient magic, a site dedicated to stargazing, a small interaction that houses a treasure room, to the point where it's difficult to tell whether this density is a value or a flaw. If recent works that have selected this type of framework have been heavily critiqued, the main difference here is that we are in the world of Harry Potter. Instead of shooting an arrow or swinging a sword, you must employ the most appropriate spell for the situation. Instead of encountering crocodiles and deer families, you will come across groups of hippogriffs and thestrals. This dynamic is a perfect metaphor for the entire Hogwarts Legacy experience, which changes shape and color depending on who is observing it. It is made up of simple, already seen, and sometimes trivial interactions that gain enormous added value when they feed the eyes of first-hour enthusiasts. The situation changes as you get through the Hogwarts gates, a place so steep and convoluted that a separate globe map is required, a maze of shortcuts and stairways so extensive that we are certain we have not yet explored every nook. The aesthetic direction shines most in the castle, capable of pulling all the finest from the original narrative and transforming it into a unified and integrated three-dimensional building. There's the one-eyed witch statue that hides the secret passage to Hogsmeade, the prefect's bathroom on the 5th floor, and absolutely all of the elements and views that one would expect to find in the school, replicated with a level of detail and craftsmanship that simply cannot be found anywhere else outside the walls. Walking through the corridors, one is surrounded by the series magic, which emerges as much from chance encounters with the poltergeist pics and the famous ghosts as from the scenography itself, which is colored by moving paintings, coughing armor, and musical instruments that play symphonies on their own. So it is the atmosphere that takes center stage in Hogwarts Legacy. Avalanche Software has wonderfully captured the soul of the story and then returned it in a feast of locales and nuances that until now dwelt just in the imaginations of the most ardent Potterheads. The developer's design is decidedly more suggestive to look at than it is deep in the mechanics. It is evident that it has not produced anything new, and it should not be interpreted as a magical Grand Theft Auto in which to cast spells on partners and analyze their reactions. On the other hand, it does a superb job of carrying out the difficult duty with which it was charged, taking aficionados through the looking glass like Lewis Carroll's Alice. Life at Hogwarts is distinguished by the passage of the seasons, which move in tandem with the main plot. For seasons, for acts, for game parts, each with a long series of activities, in fact, an astonishing amount of content moves against the backdrop of the horizontal plot, sometimes fully optional and in other cases required to continue the adventure. The clock does not start ticking until the list of the most critical activities is exhausted, and it is possible that you will find yourself without a goal if you ignore the side offer excessively. In truth, participation in the courses is required to learn spells, the fundamentals of herbology, and the noble art of potion making, and it is possible that access to some missions is denied exactly because a certain magic has not yet been mastered. In essence, the multiple windows of life that open up on daily life at Hogwarts mingle with the story's fabric, staging the most iconic of days at the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. When you wake up in your own home's dormitory, you have to rush to take a seat among the desks to study Professor Sharp's recipes or the curses guarded by the he-cat, not to mention the homework, or special assignments that must be completed in order to obtain even more advanced magical formulas. For example, Howling, a magical creature's teacher, may ask to collect a handful of exceptionally uncommon species after class in exchange for a certain spell. Whether you want to become lost in the broad world or stay grounded in the course of study, you must remember to socialize with the other students. Many Hogwarts students have stories to share, and while most of them do so through little folkloric missions, there is also potential for deeper relationships in the midst of the cloisters. The protagonist can, in fact, form genuine friendships with certain companions, such as Slytherin Sebastian, Gryffindor Natty, and Hufflepuff Poppy. Know that we have chosen Ravenclaw, and our belonging to this house has not influenced the maturation of relationships in any way, except for some specific lines of dialogue dedicated to the topic. In addition to accompanying us at key points in the adventure, the supporting characters are further defined by bond missions, long narrative chains aimed at cultivating the relationship, enriched by the presence of special rewards, and full of all the depth, both in terms of writing and gameplay, that is lacking from the activities and benefits of the open world. Indeed, Hogwarts Legacy excels in the framework of linear missions, adventures that transport the player to the four corners of the magical realm and even beyond, revealing historical settings, massive lost ruins, and well-known dungeons. More complicated than we could have imagined. These are the rare parentheses poised to reveal the darkest mysteries of Hogwarts and its environs, and it is only on such moments that the work takes a risk in terms of complexity, both narratively and mechanically. If the gameplay of Hogwarts Legacy appears to be a unique creature at first look, digging deeper reveals that it is confined to adopting all the principles of the genre of belonging and sewing them onto the fantasy of the magical world. The central element is the 30 spells that the protagonist can master, almost all of which have a dual identity. They not only silence dark wizards and runaway magical creatures, but they are also the main tool for interacting with the setting. Thus, even the fabric of the gameplay reflects the same dichotomy, staging more reflective phases and segments oriented towards pure and simple combat. There are several types of spells, ranging from the necessary ones, which are always available in the arsenal, comparable to Metroidvania upgrades, such as the Revelio and the Alahomora, to the war variations, which are aimed to control, inhibit, or blow up the hordes of opponents. The majority of environmental interactions are critical, if not overly immediate. Incendio can be used to light an unlit fireplace, Accio to draw a handle, Repulso to push heavy objects, and Lumos to persuade a moth to follow us wherever we go. This simplicity pervades the wide world and explodes within the confines of Trials of Merlin, 100 modest obstacles that force you to focus your eyes rather than your wits. Furthermore, the protagonist is worse than Atreus in God of War. You don't have time to get in front of a conundrum that already mumbles the solution to itself, sometimes even before you notice the puzzle exists. The dungeons linked to the missions intervene to bring the fabric of interactions back on track, the only circumstances in which we have happened to scratch our heads for a few minutes before finding an answer. In any case, it is a fluid, fast, and entertaining system that allows you to change spells on the fly and cast several in succession, providing good feedback especially near the end of the adventure, when the arsenal is now complete and you can move at full speed by alternating a Bombarda launch with a Wingardium Leviosa. The combat system, on the other hand, has been described by the developers as a distance duel, and this description has proven to be accurate. There are all of the classic mechanics of the action genre, from dodging to somersaulting to avoid the most powerful, passing through the solid defense erected by the Protego bubble, to finally arrive at the inevitable parry, a perfectly timed Protego that opens up to the devastating counterattack with Stupeficium. Long combos can be woven by combining the basic spell with the 16 magics assigned to the face buttons, such as pulling the enemy towards you with Accio and using proximity to set it on fire with Incendio, slamming it to the ground with Descendo, and exploding it with a Confringo following the ricochet. It is a very quick system, clearly created for one against many and enriched with ancient magic, allowing you to manipulate certain items in the scene as well as launch devastating final attacks. The most serious fault, without a doubt, is the extremely limited diversity of opponents, particularly bosses, which risks making combat quickly tedious and redundant. While unleashing a cyclone of fire and explosives among a horde of evil wizards is a satisfying experience, the spell threatens to break in the blink of an eye when you confront the 20th troll with a limitless health bar or the 1000th battalion of goblins. Aside from magic, it is possible to rely on medicines, best distilled by hand because they are expensive, and 3 extremely hostile magical plants. Professor Sharp's decoctions not only replenish our hero's health, but also unleash nothing short of devastating effects on the battlefield, such as real lightning storms. Similarly, by extracting a mandrake at the right time, you can stun an entire arena full of dark forces, and it will only be up to you to choose which weapons to present yourself at the doors of the Ashwinders with. The variety is certainly not lacking. The disillusionment spell, for example, allows you to turn invisible and act in quiet, approaching opponents from behind and swiftly dispatching them with a Petrificus Totalis. In short, there are all the aspects, from strengths to limitations, that one would expect to find inside the boundaries of an action formula put in an open environment, with the exception that each has been woven around Harry Potter's imaginatio. The adventure at Hogwarts begins with a sequence of decisions, beginning with the macroscopic ones that define the protagonist's appearance and identity and progressing to the selection of his own home and the wand that will connect with the wizard's spirit. Hogwarts Legacy promised a variety of RPG subtleties, but these are frequently handled in minor character details that have little effect on the overall experience. Choosing a house, for example, allows you to have more dialogue with your dorm mates, change the rewards of some side quests, brand the looks of apparel, and permanently ban access to other common spaces, unless you uncover a secret path to sneak inside without being spotted. Of course, the other students will notice that we are, for example, from Ravenclaw, and the protagonist himself will exclaim, "Not bad for a Slytherin," when in the presence of a friend like Sebastian. However, due to the lack of a clear karma system, the only true decision that can be made in the fabric of the dialogues is that between kindness and rudeness. However, there is one scenario in which the moral quandary appears to have serious ramifications for us and those around us. We are obviously referring to the path associated with the dark arts. If it is mentioned in the original tale that it is required to want the unforgivable curses fiercely, it is not enough in Hogwarts Legacy to only want them. You must really go and hunt for them. The mission that introduces the player to the dark arts, which lasts throughout the adventure, is without a doubt the best of the entire experience, a story that slowly drags the player towards the abyss, first making him feel the waters of temptation and then pushing him to fulfill despicable gestures in chasing the depths, turning him into a sadistic manipulator worthy of the best Tom Riddle. Of course, one can avoid the curses, and one can even consciously choose not to learn them, but to be honest, we don't know how profound the implications on the story are. For the rest, Hogwarts Legacy seems content to associate some timid RPG mechanics with the advancement machinery, which does not always produce the desired consequences. First and foremost, there are the skills, which allow you to specialize the character in 5 different branches ranging from spells to the aforementioned dark arts, resulting in significantly substantial enhancements. The heart of the growth system, however, is the advancement of levels, which underpins the acquisition of experience points and is linked to the simple increase of statistics. These points are earned through any activity, from collecting the pages of the Hogwarts Guide to defeating each enemy, and standing at the gates of combat against higher-level opponents is nearly guaranteed defeat. Unfortunately, neither the leveling system, which transforms select opponents become spell sponges, nor, more importantly, the equipment system add much to the experience. Being continually bombarded with loot, whether rare or legendary, the tendency is to always wear the item with the greatest number. This, which may appear to be a minor inconvenience, has far-reaching consequences for the entire game economy. First, the hundreds of rewards scattered throughout the open world lose value, lowering the value of secondary activities. Second, we find ourselves with an inventory crammed with objects useful only to raise cash, and it is probably for this reason that merchant prices reach absurd levels. Not to mention that the majority of the remaining rewards provided by the work, such as those derived from the extremely rich system of challenges, revolve around aesthetic customization, allowing the player to indulge himself among dozens of suits, coats, and scarves of various types without relying on equipment. In this light, the historic Room of Necessities must be mentioned, a location where all the magiformules strewn around the magical universe can be used to furnish and modify the operational base within the castle walls in complete freedom. Hogwarts Legacy would want to wink at Animal Crossing by allowing you to create a house within the wizarding world, nurture herds of wonderful creatures captured around the Highlands, and even force them to reproduce in order to rear their babies lovingly. If, after the finale, some timid extracurricular activities appear to excite the duration of the time at Hogwarts, the Room of Requirement offers a critical rib for feeding longevity at work, even if just through the quest for magical animals. The adventure in the wizarding world lasts roughly 20 hours if you simply focus on the main narrative and the most essential deviations, but it can last much longer if you decide to reveal every secret of the castle. And they are hours of lights and shadows, of clear strengths and flaws inherited from the genre to which they belong, softened here by the attention paid to Harry Potter images. The visual directions hit a perfect center, constructing a virtual realm capable of greeting even the most demanding saga fans with open arms, and it won't be any problematic mechanics that undercut Avalanche Software's enormous promise. But, under the shadow of the castle, there are certain stumbling barriers, and, predictably, the majority of these are in the technical sector. If the interiors of Hogwarts display an exceptional level of detail and shader quality unmatched by the rest of the offer, crossing the limitations of the walls reveals an open environment that frequently appears like it came from the last generation of consoles. The rendering distance is really short, the quality of the materials and textures is lacking. Just look at the aquatic surfaces, and the pop-in phenomenon is an intrinsic component of the offer. The lighting system is the least developed aspect, both in the corridors and in the Highlands, and it frequently causes tedious graphic errors. Furthermore, the heaviness of the production appears from the investigation of Hogwarts, as it is common to get caught in front of the doors while fast-traveling the wings of the castle since the following section has not yet loaded. All of the larger dungeons have been placed in dedicated instances to lower the load, although this move has increased the number of transitions to black and minor sequences designed to disguise the loads. To be clear, none of the aforementioned components are capable of invalidating the gaming experience, and we must bear in mind that Hogwarts Legacy is set to launch in a few months on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, before arriving on Nintendo Switch the following summer. For our part, we chose the performance graphics mode on PlayStation 5 and, aside from some frame rate drops in a few invasive particle sequences, the experience was enjoyable, especially because the magic of the Harry Potter world almost always manages to patch up technical flaws. However, keep an eye out for bugs, as the engine gives you a lot of freedom and appears to be prone to spawning unexpected situations. For example, we had to reload a couple of missions because they were locked in a dead-end room, and on another occasion we penetrated some solid objects with rather unpleasant results. Following the general cleaning status has greatly improved. Some philosophical elements, such as the Starkiller effect that occurs when out-of-scale magic is introduced when compared to the power levels of the original series, or the excessive indifference of the magical universe of our actions, could be questioned, but in the end, Avalanche Software has kept its most important promise. It has created a parallel world that can't wait to open its doors to millions of new students, giving the impression that is it feasible that they are still fantasizing about it after 26 years? Always, one may say.